Hi guys, welcome to the Revive Stronger podcast. I am your host as always, Steve Hall, and today we have another Q&A with Mike Israetel from Renaissance Periodization. So we get straight into those questions. So first question is from Roberto Riccardiella, who has asked about, I know there was this post by Tiago on Facebook about progressive overload, and there was a really good back and forth between Mike and Tiago, and Roberto's asked perhaps elaborations on the differentiation between overload and progressive overload would be handy for him, he said, as Mike got into a respected debate on this matter back and forth in great detail with Tiago. So yeah, I guess that was a while ago, but it would be great to kind of, fathom that out a little bit more again.
Yeah, sure. So it's not terribly difficult delineation, and it'll be understood pretty intuitively, I think, especially if you can visualize it kind of in your mind's eye. So, if we have like this whole spectrum here, this entire screen of mine, if it is the the entire amount of stimulus that you can provide in training, there's going to be a whole lot here at the bottom, maybe the bottom 2/3 or 3/4, where it's just not hard enough, be that enough volume or enough intensity or enough relative intensity, like proximity to failure. It's just not hard enough to stimulate any meaningful gains whatsoever. And it doesn't really disrupt any systems. It doesn't disrupt homeostasis, right? For example, for endurance training, you wouldn't call going for a walk to the drugstore and back endurance training. And there's nothing about the walk that it's neither high enough duration nor high enough velocity, nor disruptive enough to physical systems to count as overloading. So there's a bunch of volumes, intensities, and other sorts of difficulties which are below the overload threshold, right around, this area right here, from here to the top. I hope the screen looks the same for you as it does for me, because otherwise
I can see your finger moving.
Okay, that's good. So, from here to the top of the screen, or so to speak, once things get difficult, that's what was called the overload threshold, this line here. Now, it's really not a line in reality. It's more like a spectrum, right? So, for example, if we'd say that, weights lifted to elicit hypertrophy with no metabolite, effects being considered, what is the minimum amount of weight? Well, 60% 1RM is usually that guideline given, right? But can we really say that 57.5 is not at all stimulative and 62.5 is 100% stimulative? No. But it's kind of like a quick rise in the effect. Like, we don't get much, we don't get much, we don't get much. And like it's in the 50s somewhere, it starts to go up. And then in the 70s, it really peaks. And then it flattens out after that, right? So 60 is kind of the middle of that zone. So, if you're doing a graph, it's kind of one of those shaded areas. Like it's white, gray, and then black, right? So anything above that threshold is overloading. It is disruptive to systems, and it makes them meaningfully adapt. And goes all the way up to what we would call maximal overload, which is the most you can physically do in whatever parameter, the most volume or the most intensity. Really easy to talk about this in a repetitions and reserve concept, reps from failure. What's the maximum amount of overload you can do in any one set? Well, to failure, concentric failure. That's it. Anything, below 4 reps away from failure is probably not in that threshold under most conditions. Anything below 6 is almost certainly not. But anything, 3, 2, 1, and failure is within the overload threshold. Yeah. So to use that example pretty well, any training that occurs with 4 reps in reserve or less is overloading, period, because it is within the overload threshold. However, is it progressively overloading? Well, progression requires an examination of past states and future states to determine progression. Yeah. So we can't say we walked anywhere unless someone was like, yeah, I saw him earlier there and now he's here. As otherwise, we might just be making shit up. So progressive overload is when you meet 2 conditions. One, your jumps are all within that overload spectrum. Yeah. So, for example, week 1, you start 4 away from fail, then week 2 is 3 away, week 3 is 2 away, and so on and so forth. And also, you get deeper and deeper, closer and closer to maximal overload. That's the progressive part. So if you come in and train fucking hard and that's all you know. Did you overload? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But did you progressively overload? Well, we'd have to see how hard you trained last time. So, for example, if you train maximally over here and then next week you train still in the overload threshold but less hard, are you not overloading at all? Well, no, you still get sore, you still get tired, you still disrupt systems, you still engage in stimulus, and you still benefit from that stimulus by adapting. So it's still overloading because it's within that threshold, but it is not progressively overloading. Progressive overload supplies the best gains, but just overloading, even if you start from the top and go boop, 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 and end your cycle at the easiest, that'll still result in gains, just not as many, because you're training still on average pretty hard. It just gets easier as you go. It's certainly not the best way to do things, but it is a way to do things. That's the difference between overload and progressive overload, if I had to delineate those two concepts. And of course, progressive is the one we want most of the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess what you're saying is you wouldn't be able to train even if it was in that intensity threshold. If you train the same way all the time throughout your career, without that progression at all, you're not going to see any progress.
Well, so if you train, so there's some technicalities here, right? So that band, it moves. Right? Yeah. As you continue to provide the same stimulus, the band moves up and out and away. So at some point, like 3 or 4 sessions later, if you did the same thing, let's say you did a novel stimulus that was pretty hard. It was at the top of your overload spectrum. The first session, it would be maximally stimulating. The second session, if you repeated it, it would be not so bad. Third, fourth, et cetera. By the 5th or 6th session, you would literally just probably be below your overload threshold in reality. So what does that mean? That means that any successive stimuli there without any progression are no longer overloading. So the good idea is to stay ahead of that curve instead of bumping into situations where like, oops, it's too easy. You plan on making it difficult, deload, plan on making it difficult to stay in that band all the time. So yeah, if you do the same stuff, absolutely, sooner or later, it just won't be overloading anymore.
Perfect. No, yeah, I think a lot of people forget about the adaptations that take place. And I think this is a good reason why, well, it seems like a good application of why kind of the delete and replace concept can work in our favor, in that as that adaptation curve gets harder and harder to chase, we can kind of bring in something new where we aren't that adapted to it. And so we can have that kind of progression again.
Totally. And we can't do that too fast because then we don't milk out all the adaptations from the other curves, and it's too quick of change and you end up chasing really transient gains. But every several mesocycles, probably a good idea to switch things up and get refreshment of those curves. Mm-hmm.
No, I think you explained that really well, because I think a lot of people kind of hear about like overloading workouts and they think it's a progression, whereas that's kind of like the next time. So no, that's perfect. He had a second part. I don't think it's related to that first part, but he said, when we diet, we want to prevent muscle loss. However, post-diet, it's often said we can gain back the lean tissue, the lean tissue lost quickly due to muscle memory. So he's saying, could we just diet harder? And kind of, I guess that's quite a broad question. Can we diet harder? Is there kind of time periods we can do that for and expect it to be okay? Is there times when it's not a good idea due to kind of the muscle memory effect and gaining that back?
Yeah, definitely. So that's one of those situations where the direct relationship is interesting and good to be considered, but there's also some ancillary relationships that develop there that in our attempt to do something, we're literally checking off and kind of fiddling with other systems, and we have to worry about them as well. It's kind of like asking the question of like, can you if you have a cockpit and you have a rocket, can you ride the rocket down the street at 800 miles an hour? Yeah, if the cockpit's properly equipped, you can. You're going to kill everyone on the street and blow up all the houses. They go, oh yeah, I guess so. The rocket's fine. You're fine, but you consider everyone else, right? So a similar kind of idea. So when we're thinking about doing so really the question is, can we do a diet that exceeds the usual sort of 1% per week weight loss recommendation for some length of time? And because we can rebound our muscle relatively quickly, then it's okay because we don't make any sort of net system-based losses, and we can build on top of them really quickly. There's a couple of considerations. If we diet super duper hard and we end up really becoming sensitive to future muscle mass gains, that's really good because then we can use the diet to gain new muscle. If we diet and we basically piss away most of that extra sensitivity on regaining old losses, even if they're easy, we still piss away some of that sensitivity. Not the best way to do it, right? So you want as much muscle at the end of a diet as possible because you don't want to have to regain anything, because anytime you gain, you're on the clock for how long you have to gain or how much you have to gain until the gains start to become mostly fat. You want to use that to gain as much new muscle as possible. Where this is not as much of a concern is for individuals who aren't super concerned with their muscularity, but are interested in long-term weight management and weight loss. For them, you can burn them pretty hard and then stabilize them. And during the restabilization, during that maintenance phase, they're going to, which will last months for them, they're going to gain back all the muscle they lost probably, as long as they're weight training, et cetera, and they're going to be okay. So, but for people using diets for a cyclical approach to potentiate further muscle mass gains, I think that there's a danger there of losing muscle to the extent that even rapid regain of the muscle is time kind of wasted that you could be gaining new muscle, right? Yeah. That the combination of a high amount of nutrients and a high amount of disruption, can get satellite cell proliferation, et cetera. But remember, satellite cell proliferation doesn't really start to happen until you push myonuclear domains to some extent. And if you spent 2 or 3 weeks regaining myonuclear domain space, you're not pushing any satellite cell incorporation. So now this is all highly theoretical, but it's backed by some pretty decent physiological understanding. It's just like basically you wouldn't bet on this working super well. You know what I mean? Yeah. There were some problems doing this. I was actually rereading an old Lyle McDonald article about the P ratio, and he mentioned that, if you diet, pretty extremely to get lean, then you gain a lot of fat on the way back up. Yeah. Because you've primed yourself for fat gains. The evidence he presented for that was, in my estimation, confusing in the sense that it wasn't very relevant. It was the Minnesota starvation experiment, which is don't train with weights. So it's kind of like, well, fuck, training with weights is what regains you all that muscle. So nobody ever said starving was going to repotentiate lean mass gains. That's completely insane. But if you train with weights while starving and then you train with weights after starving, you'll probably gain a whole lot of muscle because of the low calorie conditions, and you'll be quite sensitive to it. So I'm not so sure I buy into all of the arguments for, well, right after a diet, you got to maintain for a while and et cetera. But I think I buy into some of them enough to say the following, that if you do a long diet and you go really hard with the loss, like way too hard, you're probably ticking off some of those mechanisms of reduced hormone production and enhanced capacity for fat gain, that they're going to come in pretty strong, as well as the muscle rebound ones. Now, I think if you've kept all of your muscle, you're on the net balance on the positive if you start gaining weight after you're done cutting. But if you've lost some of your muscle, now you have to fight those factors that have basically predisposed you to more fat gain, and you've got to regain lost muscle at the same time. Fuck, that's a big deal. So I think that this limits the potential applicability of rapid fat loss to shorter periods of time, maybe 2 to 4 weeks, where you can gain maybe 1.5 or lose 1.5% of your tissue at a time. Not long enough to really start to irritate those pro-obesity mechanisms, not long to cause a ton of fatigue and all this stuff. And if you lose some myonuclear domain during that time, it's not going to be much, and you probably will get it back within a week and then go back up. Although you should still try to resist muscle loss as much as possible the entire time. On the other hand, if you're a bodybuilder and you're doing a show, clearly you want zero muscle loss because nobody gives a shit as to how much you're going to regain. It's whatever you can put on stage right at that very moment.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, perfect answer. And to touch on the point on, I know people have talked about, and I know Lyle doesn't like the idea of kind of a lot of the older school bodybuilders talk about like the muscle rebound effect post show, and they kind of glorify it in a way. Like it sounds like really positive, and the way I've heard about it from you, like the fact we are in a very sensitive position to grow muscle after a diet, so long as obviously you put the caveat there that you haven't lost too much muscle and you're not hugely diet fatigued. In the state of a bodybuilder who kind of is in that very lean position where some of their hormones might not be in the best position. Is that the hormones being in that position due to the fact a lot of the time they've dieted for so long to get there, and so they have a lot of diet fatigue, or is that just a consequence of their low body fat levels, or would you say kind of it's a combination of that?
It's probably a combination, but it's mostly due to the former, the long diet to get there. There's naturally lean people, or if you're used to being lean, your hormones just fine usually. And that's kind of a big myth that like low body fats are unhealthy. You know, what's funny is people say that shit. It's just like thinly veiled, like prejudice. Basically, is when people look at bodybuilders and they can't be healthy. Like you have no idea what the fuck you're talking about. You just made that up. What you meant to say was, I hate how that looks. You know, just being lean isn't super terrible for any of this stuff, but the process of getting there, if it is very tumultuous, can be. Again, I'm not convinced that we have the data to say that regaining in that situation is a really bad idea that makes us more prone to fat gain than muscle gain. There's certainly no direct evidence that I'm aware of to that extent. And starvation studies that only go so far as they don't involve weight training. I think that obviously for bodybuilders using hormones, a lot of the stuff is sort of irrelevant. Yeah. And there's a psychological factor there where the attempt to maintain after a really hard diet is, really, really tough. So maybe just a slower gain than would be usual, maybe it'd be a better solution for that. So I think that's where I would fall on that one.
Only because I bring it up because it's not come out yet. It might be by the time this comes out, but I spoke to Peter Fitchen, and I know you're aware of his kind of studies, and they talked about natural bodybuilders and their kind of hormones not being in a healthy state till like 4-6 months post show, which has then made people draw the conclusion of you shouldn't be seeking necessarily, like you're not going to gain, you're not in a prime position to gain because your hormones aren't in that prime position. And what I was trying to fathom was, is this because those studies are done on people who have dieted for so long to get to that point and they've got such high diet fatigue that they, like you said, they aren't in that best position? Or is it just because they're low body fat? Because for someone like myself right now, I have a show in 4 weeks. I feel absolutely fine. I don't feel like my testosterone and those sort of markers would be in a terrible way. And I feel like I probably would see a productive kind of post mass after a contest. Whereas I can see if someone had dieted for such long periods of time that afterwards they probably wouldn't even be able to train productively. Do you think have I kind of explained myself well enough there?
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what we're supposed to do with information like that. What is it that you're supposed to do for 4 to 6 months after a bodybuilding show in that case?
The solution is still regaining that fat, so or even regaining. So
just mass up then.
Solution, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those like, yeah, hormones aren't optimal. How do you get them optimal? I mean, I can understand the solution being maintain, but maintaining at such low body fats, etc., may present its own problems. Psychologically, it's devastating. And some of the hormones are not really much of a concern. Some of the hormones are positive. Insulin sensitivity is sky high. That's a really good thing. Testosterone might not be sky high, but I'm not really aware of any sorts of depressions of testosterone that last months, unless we're talking about overtrained states. Yeah. And some people do probably get overtrained after bodybuilding shows, and I don't really particularly care about those people because they're doing shit completely wrong, and they're literally just backwards. So then you have a medical condition, more or less, and we don't have to factor that into periodization. You fucked up and fell off the map. And then for other hormones like hunger hormones, satiety hormones, well, they can help you eat more food. They just have to be controlled psychologically so that you don't go overboard. But I'm not so sure that those hormones necessarily just activate fat gain at the expense of any muscle gain whatsoever. Mm-hmm. I do have to say that the post-show rebound is over-exaggerated. Yeah. A lot of times it's conflated because you're still lean and you just poof up on glycogen and water, and you look jacked, and you think, oh my God, this is new muscle. I don't think that's the case. Mm-hmm. But I think that because you are lean, because you're more insulin sensitive, because your muscles haven't been growing for so long, you're primed pretty decently for more growth. You're also primed pretty decently for more fat gain. So that's why you have to eat well and not go overboard and train pretty hard to have high volumes of training to partition those nutrients where they need to go. Is there an argument potentially of several weeks of like either slower gaining, which I would be a fan of, or maintaining possibly? Yeah, maybe there's an argument for that. Absolutely. Is there an argument for, some weird stuff to do for 4 to 6 months after a show? Fuck, man. Like, I don't even know where to begin with that. You just never compete once every 3 years or something like that at that point. And a lot of the natural bodybuilder community seems to like to diet for like 40 fucking weeks at a time anyway, which I don't understand how you can't fuck up your hormonal shit doing it that long. That's another thing that Jared Feather and I in particular are really passionate about, having a controversy, having a good discussion about, is which don't really have no idea how the hell you can diet for like, basically a year. And that be a defensible practice. So.
Yeah, I'm not sure either how it became. I don't know really how it became the way to do things, but I don't think it is. I think it's becoming slowly less of a favorable approach, but there's definitely still people that take it. And I certainly took it for my first show. And to say it's been a revelation this time round is an understatement.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's been incredible. So I will have to
dieting shorter, you mean?
Yes, completely. Just physically having more periods of kind of breaking from the diet and realizing that it's not like you're this fat and you have to get to this shredded and it just has to happen in this. You've got this amount of time. If you can physically drop in periods of time where you're not dieting, that sort of thing. Even like the revelation of a lot of people think about the fact you can gain muscle, you must have a year off season and must be massing the entire time. It's like, well, actually muscle gain doesn't happen in such a tiny vacuum. Kind of, you can do it like a month massing isn't just complete time wasted. There's other things that's also going to benefit you with kind of reducing diet fatigue and things like that. So yeah, I will have to get you and Jared on to kind of talk about the reason long preps aren't maybe ideal and get your guys' take on the best way possibly to do things. That would be really interesting. Awesome.
Yeah, that sounds good.
I'll get on to the next question because I think we covered that really well, from Dan Attino, who's asked, is there any evidence you know of that functional overreaching results in more growth than continued progression, or any research supporting prolonged AMPK elevation phenomenon dominating over mTOR? He's trying to understand your recommendations regarding intentional arbitrary deloads and for intentionally stopping mass phases simply for anabolic signaling. So you should, in fact, have planned deloads and low volume phases so you can resensitize for hypertrophic processes.
Yeah, there's definitely research on the second one for sure. And there's a paper that one of my friends sent me a couple months ago. There's a huge review on all the anabolic, catabolic signaling pathways and responses to diet and training, et cetera. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll send that to you, Steve, or something like that, and you can post it. I don't particularly enjoy the research monkey thing. Like, are you aware of any research? Yes. Where is it? I don't know. Fuck, man. It's in my inbox like from 3 years ago. Like, you have Google. It would be like to say I would Google it just like you would, basically. Yeah. But luckily, I think I have this one on hand. What was the first part of the question again?
Any evidence for functional overreaching? Yeah,
I'm not aware of any direct evidence for functional overreaching's effect on hypertrophy, though we do have some good ideas that extreme disruptions can lead to more satellite cell proliferation. So there's some basic understanding there. I will say this, they haven't studied any kind of performance outcome yet that I'm aware of in which functional overreaching didn't result in performance improvements. Nice. Functional overreaching has been practiced in endurance athletics for decades. It's been practiced in strength power sports for decades. It's been practiced in team sports with technique for decades. It works everywhere it's been studied. If it didn't work in hypertrophy, so now we have two things. It works everywhere else, and we have indirect evidence of it working for hypertrophy. And remember that evidence-based practice isn't simply, read PubMed and write programs. It is do your best guess, estimation at what is the reality that we're working with and train to that reality. So I think that that's one of those situations where, if I had to gamble, myself and Brad Schoenfeld are very much agreed on this matter. Like, we probably think it's a real thing. Yeah. And it would suck to be like, well, that's clearly not an evidence, so I'm not going to do it. Okay, don't. And then when you find out 10 years later that their studies came out that shows it isn't evidence, you'll be like, wow, look, I pissed away 10 years. And somebody could ask you, did you really use your best judgment and probabilities? And you'd be like, no. Like, what the fuck did you do that? Like, why don't do anything that's not an evidence? We're like, well, there's different kinds of evidence, and if there's pretty, for example, like, you walk outside and there's a guy running away with like a mask on, and he has a gun, and there's a person bleeding on the ground. You didn't see them shoot that person, but what's your best guess? To be like, oh, I have no idea. I need to see evidence. Fuck you. You're an idiot. Fuck out of here. Like, you're not good for police work or being a human being regard his own safety. So I think we have to use all the evidence available, even if some of it's indirect. Is one of the things that Menno is really good at ranting about, like Bayesian approach, which is just using logic and evidence, not just one of the other, to come to a likely conclusion. So I think that's one of those. There are many other reasons for doing pre-programmed deloads. I wouldn't call them arbitrary. And one of them is that so it's versus autoregulation, right? The recovery book that we're finishing up now, we have a whole discussion about deloading versus autoregulation and how both need to be put into a program. One of the best uses of a deload is that you cannot feel disruptions to tendons, bones, and largely to muscles. You can't feel when your tendons are frayed. There are 50 trillion stories of powerlifters benching, feeling great, pec comes right off. And they do an MRI on both tendons, and they go, well, the other tendon's about 10% there. And they're like, how the fuck did I know that? Well, your tendon's largely not innervated whatsoever. You can't feel tendon pain unless the shit comes off. And funny enough, when it comes off, the tendon isn't even what hurts. People don't really report that when they pull their bicep off their bone. They don't even report pain like after where the tendon ripped. They report the cramping because the muscle's contracting in on itself. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, it's something you're never going to feel. So it's one of those situations where if you purely auto-regulate, and I mean this, with all due respect for auto-regulation, I think it's a great practice that must be integrated. But if you only ever auto-regulate, you never take pre-planned reductions of volume and intensity, you will consistently be so strong that you will predictably hurt yourself. That's a great way to make sure everything's stronger and stronger and stronger, but the things you can't tell are getting weaker, like tendons, etc. They're getting weaker the whole time after a while. And that's a big part of deloading and active rest phases is for the stuff that you can't feel. AMPK, mTOR, and I'll send that paper over, is another one of those, the catabolic and anabolic regulators. You can tell somewhat what's going on based on what kind of pumps you're getting, rates of progress. But after a while, you really want to make sure you take the low volume phases or the active rest phases early or in advance rather, so that you don't come to find that the last 3 months of your training felt like shit, nothing's happening, everything sucks, and then you get hurt. Yeah. How's autoregulation handling for you then? Auto-regulation and pre-planned deloading is one of those things like, let's say the oil light in your car is broken, so you don't really know when to get oil. And you go to the dealership and you're like, fucking, the light's broken. You're like, that's actually going to cost a lot of money, surprisingly, to fix the light. I know it's weird. But I'll tell you what, like every 10,000 miles, you need to change your oil. You got to go change your oil every 9,000 miles. It's going to suck. Yeah. You read the odometer. I wish I didn't have to change my oil. There's no light for that fucking thing. If there was a light, we could auto-regulate it. But there is no light. You have no idea if your tendons are frayed. None. Yeah. How does that even feel? Ask somebody, how do you know if your tendons are frayed? They have no idea. All it takes is getting under that squat bar one last time, and boom, quad tendon comes off. And you're like, well, how do you feel? And this is magnified, before anyone says anything ridiculous, in response to this, is magnified if you use anabolic drugs. Many bodybuilder using drugs has snapped both of their quad tendons off doing hack squats and leg presses. Not even stupidly, just doing them, and boom, they both come off. How? Because if you auto-regulate on enough drugs, you never feel bad. You never deload. And you're like, well, I'm auto-regulating. So when's the last time you had a volume intensity reduction? Well, 6 months ago, I think. I've just been hitting PRs all the time. Like, get ready to get fucked right now. And then boom, tendon goes, right? So there's auto-regulation is great, but it has limits based on what you're able to detect, and you cannot detect every physiological process.
Mm-hmm. I think just from a personal anecdotal perspective, I've tried both, and I've done it with clients, and kind of it's the progression I've seen via having the actual deloads in place has been better. And I've actually you have more of a goal in mind, kind of like, the deload's coming, so you can work really hard. You actually end up working a bit harder. And I just say, for anyone who isn't convinced, maybe just try both for themselves, see how results go. But I very much view it as like you have a regular check with your doctor, rather than maybe going and just randomly seeing them, or kind of when you feel bad you go and see a doctor. So sometimes you can't feel these things cropping up, or you don't know something bad is happening, and sometimes they find something really important that's
a great analogy.
Stopped before. So
that's not even an analogy, that's a direct example of undetectable physiological processes that you should be attending to, but you're not.
It's now made me think I should go see my doctor.
Yeah, which I'll tell you this. Here's another quick analogy too. It's also physiological. Sleep. From past experience, about 8 hours of sleep per night, let's say in your case, is what you need. The other way to do sleep is, so that's pre-programmed sleep. Like, at 10 p.m., I'm going to go to sleep. Okay. You go to sleep, you wake up, whatever, 8 hours later, and you're fine. You could auto-regulate sleep where you're like, I don't feel tired yet. And you don't go to sleep until you're tired, and you have to wake up at the alarm anyway. And you're like, ooh, that was not enough sleep. I'm going to sleep longer this next night. And you end up kind of getting the worst of both worlds, where you end up not sleeping enough here and sleeping too much there. And if you just pre-planned it, you would know in advance not to wade in. Because here's the thing about autoregulation. It's a really good practice for things that are best autoregulated. But some things, as soon as you start wading into them, even if they're detectable, by the time they're detected, they're already fucking you up, and have been. So, the good thing about autoregulating with something like performance is that, performance is pretty sensitive to how your physiology is responding. So if your performance is going down the drain, then, you can kind of be pretty certain that, okay, it's time to deload, et cetera. But there are other indices that, if they're – because people say so, for example, people say, what do you think about heart rate variability and all this other stuff, heart rate variables, and there's a couple of them. The general feeling that I've gotten, speaking to most sports scientists, and I'm actually personal friends with a lot of people who are monitoring experts, which I am not, athlete monitoring experts, they say, heart rate stuff is great, but you got to have excellent compliance with it. It's usually best for a team of athletes to look at team averages. And also, by the time heart rate variability is detectably off, that athlete has been fucked for weeks. So it's like, yeah, you can auto-regulate with that if you want, but Jesus, you're going to be missing a whole lot of bad signs. So it's one of those situations where auto-regulating has to be done with the right variables, and for some variables, only pre-planned stuff is the way to go, because it'll just sneak up on you.
Perfect. No, I think that's a great answer. Next question is from Daniel Cavarata, and he's asked, what are your thoughts on hyperplasia for both natural and enhanced populations?
No idea. I mean, none. People keep saying that growth hormone use causes hyperplasia. I know of no human studies to that effect. It happens in birds and shit, but all kinds of weird shit happens in birds. And no joke, they get all kinds of interesting adaptations that we don't, and vice versa. It is hyperplasia. The problem with hyperplasia is really, really difficult to study in vivo, in actual living organisms. You have to count every single fucking nucleus. So how the fuck are you going to do that? They don't have scans like that. They do if you pull out all the muscles, but then you pull out the muscle and it's dead. How the fuck are you supposed to count it? Tough. I don't know about hyperplasia in drug-free people. Does it happen? I know hyperplasia occurs in the developmental span of a human being. It occurs in the womb. It occurs, I think, in puberty to some extent. Does it occur in adult training conditions? Some people have theorized that hyperplasia may occur under superlatively stimulative conditions. Maybe. I'm really not sure. And that's one of those, I really hope there's some good ideas about it sooner than later. I'd really like to know. People keep saying growth hormone at high doses causes hyperplasia. If that's the case, Jesus Christ, I'm about to ramp it up. But I'm not sure if that's the case, so who knows?
Absolutely fair enough. I think the audience always appreciate when you're just honest. That, I mean, if you don't know, you don't know. So
totally. I'll tell you this. If anyone listening, if someone says growth hormone causes hyperplasia or this and that training causes hyperplasia, just politely ask them, like, that sounds really interesting. Like, is there anywhere I can read more about this?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that shit.
Yeah. Perfect. We'll get on to Ryan Solomon's question, who has asked, do people in their first few years of training need resensitization phases since they're already so sensitive to training?
Not many, no. Yeah, no, not as much. It's one of those things where I don't want to make, I don't like to make absolute statements generally, but do they need fewer of them? Yeah, totally. You might be able to train for a whole year, and then after a year, you might be like, it's summer or something. You may be like, go fuck around with your friends. You're in college or high school or something. Have fun, play around, train with weights a little bit, and then come back and start training again. But, a whole year of hard training without a resensitization phase to a more advanced athlete would be suicide. Yeah. So it's one of those things where less, for sure, much less. And for very, very beginners, there's nothing to resensitize, for sure.
I guess, would there be a case of, if you did use it, it's not like it's going to be negative? Would that be a case? So
totally. And sometimes life just acts as a resensitization phase anyway. So no real downsides other than delaying gains by a month or something like that, which in the grand scheme doesn't mean shit. So, and it also will probably reduce injury probabilities, but I think deloading and stuff takes care of most of that for beginners. So,
perfect. Abel Kasabi has asked, I'd be curious to hear him defending his stance on muscle damage and soreness being indicative of hypertrophy, because he said, just recently heard some smart evidence-based folks touting that muscle damage is more of a byproduct of training that may interfere with muscle gains as opposed to something we should actively seek out. And I think this has become quite kind of on social media. I've seen it kind of touted quite a lot recently, and I know you went over it during the hypertrophy seminar when you came over to London. And I think it's Menno Henselman. I don't know if you actually debated him on this topic.
Brad Schoenfeld ended up debating him on this topic.
Okay. But I know, Menno's kind of touted, I believe, that kind of muscle damage isn't something that's even of benefit.
Yeah. So, maybe he's right. I don't think he's right, but he could be. The thing about the damage and growth thing is there's some real... So first we have to take a theoretical consideration. One, is it possible that training causes so much damage that your body spends most of its resources healing damage and the stimulus is too great, too far over MRV or whatever, to cause an adaptive response? Absolutely. Where do we see such a scenario play out regularly? In beginners. In most studies with weight training, they start out, rank beginners, with 12 sets of squats per week. That's fucking insane. The first time I ever did 3 sets of squats, my first true 3 sets of squats, I was already a well-trained wrestler. I had lots of running under my belt. I was not untrained in the sense that most of these individuals are in the laboratory. So I was relatively damage resistant. I did 3 sets of 6 in a squat at 185 pounds. My science teacher made me squat because he called me a little bitch for only training upper body and doing leg presses. And that was Wednesday. The American holiday of Thanksgiving was Thursday. And I remember I couldn't get off the porch, which was like a third of a meter off the ground, maybe a quarter of a meter off the ground, because I was so sore. I was afraid that if I stepped down, my quads would just blow up. Like I was just like crawling down. It was pathetic. That was an unbelievable degree of DOMS that I got for a week. So when you have these studies where people start training with full loading because the researchers don't want to bother with ramping up the loading as far as set numbers are concerned, even though they ramp up the intensities, the amount of muscle damage you see in the first several weeks is literally medically significant. It's clinically significant. And most of the early research on DOMS was, there's Patricia Clarkson wrote a review on DOMS with the etiology of delayed onset muscle soreness. We're literally treating like a medical condition because in that extent, it is a fucking medical condition. Is that much damage a good idea? Almost certainly not. So let's say we're making the case that 0 damage is the best way to go about getting hypertrophy. Well, I'm going to have a real uphill battle with that. Because if we list out the kinds of training practices in the laboratory and in real life that tend to correlate with growth the most, they all also cause damage.
Yeah.
All of them. Metabolite training causes damage, causes soreness. Increasing your volumes causes soreness, causes damage. Using heavier weights than you're used to causes soreness, causes damage. Stretch under load really fucks you up, independent stimulator of hypertrophy. Eccentric focus causes damage, causes hypertrophy. You literally run the entire gamut. Increasing training frequency means you're more sore more often, or all the fucking time. You're filled. So basically, like, if you used to squat twice a week with certain set numbers and you add in another training day, now instead of being okay on 2 days of the week, you're never okay and you're always sort of sore or something like that, or to some extent. And that seems to increase hypertrophy as well. So if we're making the argument that damage has nothing to do with growth whatsoever, I'm not really sure what kind of training recommendations you would derive from that. On the other hand, if we make the recommendation that there is an intermediate amount of damage that is good, that too little damage, again, we can use evolutionary sort of pseudo logic, but it's kind of predictive of most things. Why the fuck would your body adapt to no physical disruption whatsoever? Yeah. If nothing was broken, why the fuck would your body try to fix it? It basically doesn't do that with any other physical systems. It's wholly uninterested. Like if you are somebody says a couple words to you in Spanish, you're like, whatever, I don't give a fuck. But if you're in the Spanish country and you don't understand a goddamn thing, you will learn Spanish really quickly. On the other hand, if you're in a Spanish country and you speak to other people just fine in English and you don't care, there's no disruption, there's no error, there's no problem, you're going to learn Spanish in your life. So it would be really curious if damage and disruption had nothing to do with growth. It would be really curious if infinite damage and disruption were infinitely related to growth. And it would be very predictable if there was an intermediate amount of damage that wasn't too much, it wasn't too little, and it probably correlated best with growth. All of the studies I've seen that compare damage and growth directly, including the fucking Damas study — God damn it, stop sending me that fucking study. I've read it back to front. That does not rule out the potential that there is an optimal amount of disruption that is not zero disruption. If you're really, really interested in having zero disruption from training, you have taken away every single effective training modality. Period. Yeah. Forget about deletion and replacement, because that's just going to get you sore and damaged. Forget about novelty of training stimulus. Forget about ramping up too much volume and intensity, because that's going to get you fucked up. Metabolite training is not even on the table. Eccentric accentuated training is off. You're just taking away every single effective training strategy you have. So now, is there a grain of truth there to where, like, if you use those excessively and too much and you get too sore, too damaged, will there be a problem? I totally agree with that. Yeah. But to say that there is, they would say that first of all, to say that there's enough empirical evidence to say that damage has no relationship to growth is just make-believe. Yeah. It's using one study interpreted quite poorly to suggest something that is contradictory to most other physiological realities that we're familiar with. It contradicts almost all practice. And I'm really not interested in people who say, or in the statement of, well, soreness and muscle getting sore doesn't mean anything. Well, it means at least one thing, that you're for sure targeting that fucking muscle. Yeah. So when you say, oh, I'm doing lunges and I can feel it in my glutes, how can you feel it? Well, they're sore later. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Well, of course it fucking means something. It means you hit your glutes. Now, if they're radically sore, you're probably doing too much, and you could do fewer lunges and get a great benefit. But if you're like, yeah, lunges are great for glutes, and you're literally like, my glutes have never been sore or pumped or anything during lunges, and they're like, oh, don't worry, they're still hitting your glutes. Like, really? Sure? So I think that, damage and soreness, sort of damage and growth are probably related, and my guess is that damage in some direct mechanistic way actually leads to growth. Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't, it sure as hell is a pretty good proxy for training hard enough to cause both damage and growth. So at the very least, it's a good proxy, I think. I think that if you set your sights on getting intermediately sore in the muscle groups you have that do get sore, I think you'll get the best gains. Mm-hmm. I think if you set your sights on never being sore, you're going to engineer fucking dick for gains altogether. Be like, oh, well, time to leave the gym, folks. Don't want to get sore. All right, see you later. You're doing 1/3 of the volume you need to. And on the other hand, if you're like a soreness chasing monkey and you're like, I literally won't want to walk ever again. This is going to be amazing. Like, you're going too far, and that's probably a bad idea.
Yeah. No, I guess the only way to do it would be to take anti-inflammatories the entire time, and but that's been shown to reduce adaptations.
Oh shit!
I guess.
I wonder why. That's fucking weird, huh? It's every time I recant the evidence against this, I always forget that, or I always forget one or two things. That's one of them. Anti-inflammatory drugs directly impinge on adaptation, and as a matter of fact, they actually do this in tendons as well. You actually heal from injuries less profoundly if you overdo the anti-inflammatories, which is why nowadays medical practice is starting to say, yeah, use the anti-inflammatories as needed, but don't just pop them all the time, because it actually interferes with injury healing, and it certainly interferes with hypertrophy. Curiously enough, anti-inflammatories in some populations, particularly very old adults who have been subject to quite a bit of training, enhance the hypertrophic response. How the fuck would that be? Oh wait, their inherent levels of inflammation are higher. The amount of damage they get from training is way more because they're not used to it, and their adaptive windows aren't as big. So if you give them anti-inflammatories, it brings them back into that golden intermediate damage window, and they progress. Otherwise, that wouldn't make any damn sense. How the fuck do the mechanisms flip over, right? Mm-hmm. So we want a certain amount of damage and disruption. Usually for most people, anti-inflammatories take away some of that and take away too much, and you get less growth. But for individuals that are chronically more inflamed or doing way too much outside their abilities to recover, they may actually benefit from anti-inflammatory use in a particular time. So that's another one. The anti-inflammatory thing is a pretty big deal as far as an argument is concerned. Yeah. If you really don't think it has anything to do with damage, how the fuck come that shit that makes the damage, masks the damage, so to speak, or doesn't allow the same pathways that lead to DOMs to express themselves, how come that fucking inhibits growth? Mm-hmm. It's curious. It's curious for sure.
I guess from my angle, well, from my perspective, when I hear your arguments for it, it's taking the evidence as a whole and also considering the populations in question, which I think sometimes people draw conclusions without necessarily doing all of that, which is, I mean, it's evidence-based practice. So, yeah, I think that's, I think it's a terrific argument. He has another question asking, wonder what his thoughts are on looking at training volume in a number of hard sets, as opposed to reps per session plus training frequency. So he's, just wonders what your thoughts are on looking at training volume in number of hard sets.
Man, I didn't think I'd ever get that question after a year ago. Greg Nuckols pretty much came up with that, and I pretty much popularized that. So when I first read it, I thought Greg was almost entirely correct. Within a certain rep range, anywhere between 5 and 15 reps for sure, maybe even 5 and 20 total hard sets is roughly equivalent to hypertrophic outcomes. So I think it's great. I can't believe somebody actually asked me that. It's like, Mike, what do you think of the MRV concept? You're like, fuck that. It's made by some charlatan asshole Jew, by the way. So it's all the bad things. So anyway, I think it's great.
That's what, I mean, I guess that's what MRV is. It's the number of hard sets you can actually do.
Usually that's how we express it. Now, it can be expressed as far as total volume, but the reason I chose not to, the reason I was really thankful Greg came up with that hard sets thing, I think he came up with it, is that, it just, it's, boy, what a great shorthand it is for just talking to people. Because, man, I'm around weightlifters a lot. I used to be much more when I was helping with Olympic Training Center and stuff like that. And sometimes they speak in kilograms of total loading per week. That shit's like nonsense, man. It might as well be Greek, like, oh yeah, I'm doing 10,000 kilos this week or whatever. I'm like, what the fuck, is that a lot? Like, my calculator out, like how many snatches, you know what I mean? But if you're like, I did like 10 sets of snatches this week at, 90% plus, I'm like, oh, yeah, see, that makes some goddamn intuitive sense. So.
No, I think it's actually... and a really interesting. I don't think many people think about it. They think about volume. They think about sets times reps. They think about volume load, sets times reps times load, and then
which is great.
Which it is, and I think for powerlifters especially, and probably weightlifters as well, it has like more applicability. But someone like a bodybuilder who's doing so many different movements, it just becomes a bit difficult. So the hard sets
Totally
makes complete sense to me.
Here's another one. It's like, how do you factor in cable tricep extension? Fuck, what's the distance on that? Like, who the fuck knows? You need to measure everything. Like, that's nonsense, right? At some point, you need a workable proxy that works pretty well, and the variation that it misses is swallowed up by other more important training variables. Yeah. Like how you feel day to day is probably more variation than if you're factoring in tricep extension sets versus skull crusher sets or something like that.
Perfect. Time for one more question.
Yeah, what time is it?
It is just 2 minutes to the next hour. So
yeah, absolutely.
Cool. So we'll go to Elke's question because Abel had 3 questions, but I think Elke wants to ask you, said, and this is quite an interesting one. She said it's one of those standard ones. She said, where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years' time? So it's quite a different question for you. So, yeah, where do you see yourself in 5 and 10 years' time? Have you even thought that far ahead, Mike?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
I'll tell you exactly where I see myself. In 10 years' time, you, Steve Hall, will be giving a talk as the new heir, the leader to the dystopian combination fascist, socialist, Maoist, revolutionary force that's now taken over the world. And I'll be on a cell phone calling your earpiece, because everyone will have earpieces by then. And you'll be giving the speech, and you'll be like, oh, hold on a second, let me call my earpiece. And you'll be like, what's that? And it'll be like, hey, Steve, you look better in red. And there's going to be a red dot in your forehead. And boom, I'm at a skyscraper 2 miles out. 1 shot, 1 kill, my friend. And I saved the world from your wrath. Revive stronger. That's how it started and ended with global tyranny.
That's how do you even come up with such crazy concepts? I have no plans.
I'm nuts
for that.
To begin with.
Not seen these.
You're like, let me just restate to our viewers: I have no plans for world domination. You start like filing papers away on your desk. Like, what's it? Yeah, that's actually an interesting question. You know, I do have, I guess, some insight on this. I have spent the entire fraction of my life that has been productive in setting short-term goals that are definitive and long-term hazy attitudes versus directions versus goals. So my goal in the next 5 years is to get bigger and leaner and to understand more and more and more about how training works and how diet works. It is also to try to help Nick produce the best content possible for Renaissance periodization and lead our company to helping more people with fitness endeavors and reduce the confusion in the industry and increase the awareness of realities and let people do more with less. That's it, man. That's my 5-year plan. That's just probably my 10-year plan. With 10 years a bit different because maybe by then I won't be bodybuilding anymore and I'll lose a bunch of weight and just do jiu-jitsu, but that's a bit longer. But the 5-year plan is just do good. And intermediately, I have like 3 books that I'm writing and a bunch of other projects that we're working on. So I always have stuff to do intermediately, but we're just trying to do a good job, man. I never really made long-term plans because so much can change, you know, with life and stuff. And people say, like, you know, where are you going to be living? And people give answers. Oh, fuck, I don't know where I'm going to be living. I don't know. Who knows? So I'm just trying to do a good job and learn more. And hopefully in the next 5 years, I can get a book out about hypertrophy training principles.
Awesome.
And I got to learn more for that stuff because every time I think I have shit figured out, there's another piece of the puzzle that's just new. And I'm like, fuck, I should probably get that figured out before I put out a book. So maybe that'll happen and that could be cool. But other than that, you know, that's it.
Well, I mean, just to hear that, I mean, for people listening, they want that hypertrophy book now. And I mean, I want it, but to hear
so do I.
I mean, to hear that you're still figuring out and seeing pieces of the puzzle is incredibly exciting to me, at least, because that means there's still more to learn, more gains to be made, which is I think it will always be something that's developing. Maybe you can release one and say that you can have new additions, remakes. And
we'll definitely do that. But I'm going to say that I don't even know enough yet to put down a real decent book. Maybe in the next 1 or 2 years that'll happen, but for now we're not there yet.
I think I could write a book from your Facebook posts and podcasts. So I might just do that. Just get
there you go, man.
Be like, this is going to be Mike's book anyway.
That's it, Mike's book from the future.
But I actually think that was a brilliant answer. And I think if people ask me, I'm very much the same. I don't have like big, massive business plans. It's just more doing what I'm doing, trying to grow and develop. And I think we got asked quite a similar question at the conference over in London, and it was just to hear you talk about it. And the fact is, you just want to help people. You haven't got any kind of weird side business, like you don't want to be a millionaire, billionaire earning tons of money and just taking people for what they've got.
Hey, listen, man,
if it happens,
yeah, listen, so here's the deal. We're not going to sell out at Renaissance, or sell out's a shitty term. We're not going to start lying at people to make a quick buck.
Exactly.
We are very interested in money at Renaissance Periodization. We love money. It's practically a religion to us. The thing is, the way to get the most money is to give people a fucking awesome deal, great products that they can rely on that are not bullshit. We don't want you as a customer for Renaissance right now. We want you as a customer for as long as you'll have us, because we'll continue to provide good work and we'll never fuck you over. Everything we make to last, and we make it so that it works, and we make it so that if you find yourself in the market of fitness next year or 3 months, you come back to us maybe. We don't even think you should come back to us. We think you should come back to the best deal from the best companies that are around. Sometimes that's us. Sometimes that's other people. We're going to be striving to continue to provide that best product. That makes us considerable amount of money. It's going to probably make us hopefully more money in the future. That's how you make money, though, is you make good fucking shit. You think Ford Motor Company is sitting around thinking, how do we fuck people out of money? They've been around for like fucking 100 years. They don't do that. They're like, how do we make a quality fuck? You think Steve Jobs and all those iPhone people, Apple, et cetera, are trying to fuck people out of money? You kidding me? They're trying to provide you a product. Like when the first iPhone came out, there was no fuckery at all. It was like this thing just left everything behind. Every other cell phone company executive that day was like, well, I'm going to go home and fucking drown myself in my own urine. Like, it was just that much better. And they continue to every single time. Apple just makes better and better shit. What does Facebook do? Better and better shit. Like, how do you think they run Facebook? They look at exactly what people like. If Facebook could dissect a human being and find out all of their preferences and desires, I guarantee you they would do that shit immediately, with the proper consent, of course. Like, my dying wish is to be dissected by Mark Zuckerberg himself. But, they want to provide you with the best possible fucking experience, so that when someone's like, hey, I heard there's this new thing coming out, it's better than Facebook, you'd be like, yeah, that's nice, whatever. I don't give a shit. If it's that good, I'm sure it'll pop up, but fuck that. Facebook's the shit. So, people say like, oh, I want to people say I have no idea, but I'm not a very good businessman. Nick Shaw is. That's what he does. Yeah. But I think I kind of reflect a sentiment where people are like, you've got big goals for a company, hashtag 2018, the takeover and shit like that. Motherfucker, what takeover? Do a good job, provide good products, and people will give you money for that shit. Yeah. And on the business side of like reaching out and working with other people, like, at Renaissance, we're constantly, Nick, not particularly, but Nick almost exclusively is the person to reaches out to bigger companies and smaller companies and tries to form partnerships to get more people access to quality goods and services that we have. And that partnership and strategic stuff is cool, but again, that's all based on what kind of good shit do you do? Like, I was at a business meeting recently in New York City with some big players or whatever, and sorry, you still there?
Yeah,
cool. So there's like so I was in a business meeting with some big players, et cetera, and, we're talking about like how we can cooperate and do this and that and all these cool products. And a lot of them were interested in like, so why the fuck are we talking to you and not other people? And I'm like, well, I'm glad you asked this. Here's all the cool shit we've done. And they're like, oh, holy fuck, this is all science-based. And I'm like, yeah, sure as fuck is. And they're like, one of the things they asked me was like, what's your philosophy? I'm like, we don't have one. It's whatever science and best practices are. And they're like, huh. Okay, that's really good. And we're like, yeah, thanks. So just keep doing a good job. And when you do engage in – and another thing, like people say like, oh, you got to network. Like, yeah, but you got to be a fucking cool person. Cool by I mean like you have to be able to offer value. If, people like, oh, yeah, I'm going to network with people. Well, everyone who network finds out you're a fucking valueless scumbag. Does this matter? They're just going to know to stay the fuck away from you. And someone's going to email them and be like, oh, yeah, John contacted me. Should I work with him? And like, no, that guy fucking sucks. But if you're a great person and you want to create value with other people, you don't have to try to plan to network as much as network is fine, but you being good at what you do is what it comes down to. So I'm very wary I'm not wary of people, but I'm very wary of myself for trying to make Napoleonic plans for like, hashtag 2018, the takeover or some shit. Like, we're just doing a good job, man. And if we're ever swayed from doing that, only mission is to come back to doing a good job. And we do that enough, man, fuck, we got cool products and services. You might want to buy them. They'll help you out. That's all we have to offer. And if we keep offering that, money comes along with it.
Well, you're definitely doing a good job. I think everyone watching can guarantee that to say the same thing. And one thing you are doing is getting married, right?
Yeah, right. And that's not so much of a plan as it is kind of already set in motion. Yeah. So I'm getting married to Crystal in 2018 in May or something like that. Yeah. It's a cool thing. I'm excited to call her my wife. But also we've been together for long enough and we're intimate enough to where, like, marriage doesn't really change much. Yeah. Like, I'll put it to you this way. And here's some shitty life advice from a person who probably shouldn't be giving it. If you're going to feel way different after being married than before being married, you probably should have gotten to know that person better. Yeah. If being married is almost like a really fun formality to you, because that person, you look at, I can look at Crystal, I'm she's going to be with me the rest of my life. Married, not married, call her whatever, she's still going to be around. I'm still going to care for her. Then once you get married, you're like, what are we going to do? We're going to get married, then we're going to go to a hotel room after and be like, oh, this is different. Like, it's not different at all. It's like Tuesday. You know what I mean? Like, what the fuck are we talking about? So it's one of those things, like, even with marriage, it's a big deal, but the stepping stones and to that, it's one of those that by the time it's a decision, it's kind of obvious.
No, I think that's good. I think that's good life advice. And I'll let you go because I've kept you long enough on this question as well. So just from me and all the listeners, want to say a massive thank you again for a brilliant Q&A. And yeah, we will hopefully see you soon again. Cheers, guys, for listening. Thank you, Mike, for coming on.
Thank you so much.